The last to leave, the story behind the Virgo constellation. Every star has a story. Stretched across the heavens is one of the largest figures in all the sky. The gentle form of a maiden reclining among the stars, with a single brilliant star shining like a jewel in her hand. And close beside her, quiet and unmistakable, hangs a set of scales. This is the constellation of the maiden, and her story is not one of monsters, nor of battles, nor of great hunts. It is the story of a time when the whole world was good, and of what happened when it stopped being so. It is the story of the very last of the gods to walk among us. Let us drift back to the earliest days of the world. In that distant time, when gods and mortals still lived close together, there was a goddess named Astraea. She was the goddess of justice and of innocence, and of all things pure and good. Some say she was the daughter of Themis, who was herself the very embodiment of divine law and order. And wherever Astraea walked, fairness followed close behind her. She carried always a set of golden scales, the scales of justice, upon which all things could be weighed and measured and made right. And in those early days, she walked freely upon the earth among the people at their very side. For that was the first and greatest age of the world, the age that would come to be remembered as the Golden Age. In that time, humanity lived in peace and in harmony. There was no war and no cruelty. There was no greed and no deceit. There were no locks upon any door, because there were no thieves to fear. And there were no laws and no judges, for none were ever needed. For the people were good to one another of their own free will, and did what was right without ever having to be told. The earth gave up its fruit freely, without labor, and it was said to be a season of endless and gentle spring. And in that righteous and peaceful world, the goddess of justice was welcome everywhere she went. She made her home among mortals, content to live beside a people who had no need at all of her scales, because they were already just. But no age lasts forever, and slowly, so slowly at first, the world began to change. The hearts of the people began to harden. The endless spring gave way to harsh and biting seasons. And bit by bit, the goodness went out of them. They began to quarrel with one another. They began to want what belonged to others. And they began to forget the simple kindness that had once come to them as naturally as breathing. In time, they learned to shape weapons, and then they learned to turn those weapons against one another. And as humanity fell, the gods who had once dwelt among them began to withdraw. One by one, they departed, drawing back up into the heavens, away from a world that no longer honored them. But not Astraea, for the goddess of justice loved humankind, and she could not bring herself to give up on them. As the other immortals left, one after another, she alone remained. She withdrew from the cities and the company of men, retreating to the quiet hills and the wild and lonely places, appearing to mortals less and less often. But still she stayed, the very last of all the immortals to remain upon the earth. She lingered there, hoping against hope that the people might yet remember themselves, that they might turn back from the dark path they were walking and become once more the good and gentle souls they had been in the beginning. But they did not. Instead, the world sank at last into its darkest age of all, the Iron Age. In that age, every bond that holds people together was broken. Truth and honesty and faith fled from the world entirely, and in their place came fraud and violence and deceit and the endless hungry love of gain. Guest turned against host, brother turned against brother, hands that had once been gentle were stained with blood. There was no honor left anywhere, and no shame, and no justice to be found in all the world. And Astraea, who had waited so long and hoped for so much, could bear it no longer. The world had become a place where the goddess of justice no longer had any home. And so, with the greatest of sorrow, she too finally departed. Rising up from the blood-soaked earth, the last of all the immortals to abandon humankind, she ascended into the heavens and left the world of mortals behind her. But she was not lost, for the goddess of justice was given a place of honor among the stars, so that even though she had left the earth, she might never be forgotten, and might look down upon the world still from high above it. And so she became the constellation we know as Virgo, the maiden. and the golden scales she had always carried, the scales of justice with which she had once weighed the deeds of a righteous world, were set into the heavens beside her to shine there at her side forever. And those scales became a constellation all their own, the one we now call Libra, the scales. So that even to this day, the Maiden of Justice and her balance hang together in the sky, side by side, exactly as they always were. And that is why, even now, when you look up and find that great and gentle figure among the stars, with a single brilliant star shining in her hand, you will see, close beside her, the quiet shape of the scales, Justice and her balance, watching over the world from far above. And there is one last thing the old stories tell, for they say that Astraea did not leave us forever. They say that she is only waiting, and that one day, if humankind should ever become worthy of her once again, if the world should ever return to the goodness it knew in the beginning, then the Maiden of Justice will come down from the stars once more. And when she does, the Golden Age itself will return with her. So when you find the Maiden and her scales among the stars, remember the goddess they belong to. Remember the last of the immortals who loved us enough to stay long after all the others had gone. And remember that she is up there still, holding her scales, watching and waiting for the day that we might call her home. Rest now and let the stars keep watch. For the heavens are wide and full of hidden stories still, each one waiting quietly to be remembered once more. And every one of them is a tale for another night.